trusting Jesus in the storm. How to step out in faith when fear takes over.
Have you ever found yourself just doing everything exactly right in life?
Oh, yeah.
Like you're checking all the boxes, you're following all the rules, and then out of nowhere, the wind suddenly changes and throws you into this massive, disorienting crisis.
It's the worst feeling.
It really is. You know the feeling, you're putting in the work, you're making all the ethical choices, doing what you're supposed to do,
Right.
and bam, you're hit with a situation that just completely knocks the wind out of you.
It is so universally jarring. I mean, as humans, we are fundamentally wired to believe in this sort of cosmic math.
Right. Like good behavior equals good results.
Exactly. Right? Actions should equal smooth sailing. So when they don't, our immediate primal assumption is that we must have made a catastrophic error somewhere along the way.
And well, that psychological reflex is exactly where we're heading with our topic for this month. Today, we are looking at this fascinating historical account, specifically Matthew 14, the incredibly famous story of Jesus walking on water.
Such a powerful text.
It really is. But our mission today isn't just to, recap an ancient historical event. We are breaking down this month's topic to find a highly practical, supernatural blueprint for how you can handle paralyzing fear in your own life right now.
Precisely. We are going to analyze the actual mechanics of focus.
Yeah.
We want to understand how the human brain processes fear and how we can keep our eyes fixed on a higher reality when anxiety just takes over.
Which is so crucial.
Yeah, and we'll look at what it truly requires to step out of a perceived place of safety. Because faith wasn't designed as a theoretical concept for, calm days on dry land. It's an operational tool built specifically for the storm.
Man, that's good. Okay, let's jump right into the historical setup here, because the context of this text is honestly wild. The disciples are riding this incredible psychological and emotional high.
Oh, massive high.
Right. They have just witnessed an absolute blockbuster event, the feeding of over 5,000 people from just a meager packed lunch. So their dopamine has to be spiking. Their belief is electric.
They're riding the wave.
Literally. And in the immediate aftermath, Jesus sends them ahead in a boat across the Sea of Galilee while he stays behind on the mountain to pray. But soon, night falls, the wind rises, the waves get incredibly rough, and these guys, many of whom are professional, hardened fishermen, find themselves stuck in a relentless, terrifying squall.
Well, the geography of the Sea of Galilee is really crucial to understand here.
Okay, break that down for us.
Yeah, so it sits about 600 feet below sea level, and it's surrounded by these steep hills and ravines. When cold air from the mountains collides with the warm air rising off the lake, it creates these sudden, violent, hurricane-like squalls.
Oh, wow. So it's a real weather phenomenon.
Exactly. This isn't just some literary metaphor. It's a harsh meteorological reality. But there is a massive thematic shift in this text that defies our usual thinking about hardship. The disciples didn't end up in this life-threatening storm because they made a mistake or disobeyed. They ended up in the storm precisely because they obeyed the command to go ahead. Not every storm means you are in the wrong place. Sometimes you are exactly where Jesus wants you.
Which totally scrambles our natural compass. We always assume the storm is our fault. It's like someone training perfectly for a marathon.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
You do the months of training, you eat the perfect diet, buy the expensive shoes, and on race day, at mile 2, you step in an unseen pothole and snap your ankle. You did everything right, but you are still in the mud.
Yeah, life just happens.
So how does realizing that obedience and right choices can lead us directly into a storm, change the way we view the pressure at work or family conflicts or spiritual battles we're facing today?
Well, I think it fundamentally reframes the nature of struggle. If you operate under the assumption that storms are only punishments for wrong turns, then when the pressure hits your family or your career, you're going to spend all your mental energy feeling guilty.
Yeah, paralyzed.
Exactly, paralyzed or trying to reverse engineer what you supposedly broke. But if you accept that not every storm indicates you are in the wrong place, it changes your posture entirely.
It takes the shame out of it.
Completely. Sometimes you are in the crosshairs of a crisis because that is exactly where you are meant to be. The storm isn't a sign of your failure. In many cases, it is the exact crucible required for you to experience a level of resilience and power that you just never could on the safety of the shore.
That reframing is so powerful. But, we have to be real about the sheer physical and emotional toll this text describes. It is the middle of the night. The historical notes for this month's topic indicate this is the fourth watch.
Right, which is brutal.
Yeah, roughly between 3 and 6 a.m., They are severely sleep-deprived. Their muscles are just screaming from rowing against hurricane-force winds for hours, and they feel utterly abandoned.
Utterly alone.
And then, out of the darkness, just before dawn, Jesus approaches them, walking on the very water they are terrified of drowning in. But instead of relief, the text says the disciples are absolutely terrified. They scream out, thinking he is a ghost.
Which gives us a really brilliant window into human psychology. Fear physically and cognitively blinds us.
It literally changes how we see things.
It does. When we are caught in a cycle of anxiety, our amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, it goes into overdrive, especially when we are exhausted. It distorts our vision and our ability to process reality.
So they couldn't even recognize their own teacher.
Exactly. It causes us to misread the presence of help. Instead of seeing a savior, the exhaustion and fear make them pattern match to the worst-case scenario. They assume God is a phantom, distant, strange, or completely uninvolved in their suffering.
Okay, I have to stop you there, though, and push back a little on the timeline of this narrative, because there is this agonizing delay that our topic highlights today.
Yeah, the delay is tough.
If Jesus sees them struggling in the dark, and the text implies he did from the mountain, why wait until the fourth watch? If you saw them at midnight, why show up at 4 a.m.?
It's a great question.
Why let them row in terror for hours? Is the delay itself a deliberate mechanism? Or is he trying to expose that the wind isn't actually their biggest problem?
That is the real friction of the text. And the analysis suggests it's a combination of both. First, the delay exposes their absolute limits. Remember, these are professional fishermen.
Right, they know what they're doing.
Exactly. Their default is to solve problems on the water using their own strength, their own calluses, their own expertise. By delaying, they are allowed to reach the absolute end of their own self-reliance.
Wow, they had to run out of their own options first.
Yes. But on a deeper level, the delay demonstrates that he is not panicked by their crisis. He moves at the pace of grace, not the pace of their anxiety.
The pace of grace, I love that.
It's true. The storm outside the boat is a temporary environmental issue, right? But the panic, the fear, and the lack of trust inside the boat, that is the deeper existential threat. The text suggests he is more interested in dismantling their internal fear than immediately fixing their external weather.
Man, that leads to the major turning point in the narrative. Jesus finally speaks over the howling wind. He says, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." Just the introduction of that single voice begins to shift the atmosphere.
A total shift.
And then Peter does something that defies all logic. He shouts back over the waves, "Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water." And the response is just one word, "Come." Peter throws his legs over the side of the boat and actually walks on the water.
What is most fascinating here is what does not happen. Jesus doesn't, snap his fingers and calm the storm first.
Right. The wind is still going crazy.
Yeah. The wind is still screaming. The waves are still crashing over the bow. Instead of removing the chaos, he invites Peter to step into a supernatural reality right in the middle of the danger. This is a massive paradigm shift for how we understand faith.
How so?
It proves that faith isn't just a reward you get after the storm passes. It is a mechanism that operates within the storm itself.
I just cannot get over Peter's audacity,
Yeah.
honestly. Leaving the boat means leaving the only logical, tangible place of safety he has.
It makes no sense naturally.
None at all. It is the equivalent of being trapped on the top floor of a burning building. The fire department arrives with a ladder truck, and instead of asking for the ladder, you ask them for a fireproof suit so you can just walk out through the flames with them.
That is exactly what it's like.
Why is it that experiencing profound, life-altering power usually requires us to abandon the very structures we rely on for our security?
Because the text argues that true security is not found in a wooden boat. It is found in proximity to the divine. The things we rely on in our modern lives, our savings accounts, our carefully curated 5-year plans, our social status, they offer us an illusion of control.
A very fragile illusion.
Extremely fragile. When a genuine crisis hits, those structures are often revealed to be incredibly weak. Experiencing the supernatural requires an empty hand. You cannot white-knuckle the safety of the boat and reach out for the impossible at the same time.
Wow. You have to let go to grab hold.
Exactly. You have to let go of what you can control to lay hold of what you cannot. Peter traded a fragile, sinking illusion of safety for an impossible, gravity-defying reality.
But, the narrative doesn't let us stay in that triumphant moment for very long. We see a heartbreaking, intensely relatable shift. Peter is doing it. He is out there on the water.
He's actually walking.
But then he looks at the wind. He looks at the waves. The cognitive focus shifts, the fear rushes back in, and the impossible reality just shatters. He begins to sink into the dark water, and as he goes under, he screams, "Lord, save me!"
The mechanics of this moment are critical for us to understand. The timeline here is so specific. Immediately, Jesus reaches out and catches him.
Immediately.
Yes. He doesn't let Peter swallow a lungful of seawater to teach him some harsh lesson about failure. He saves him instantly, and only after Peter is safely secured in his grip does the question come, why did you doubt?
Wait, okay, I need to challenge this a bit.
Oh.
The text says he saves him immediately. But if we map this onto real life, say you're waiting for a terrifying medical diagnosis or watching a business collapse, that immediate physical rescue doesn't always happen.
That's very true.
Sometimes it feels like we're swallowing seawater. How do we reconcile the immediacy of this ancient text with the prolonged suffering we often experience today?
That is probably the most difficult tension in our entire discussion today, and you are totally right to call it out. The immediate rescue in the text is physical, but the broader application is relational and spiritual.
Okay, unpack that.
The immediate catch doesn't mean the storm stops, remember? The wind is still blowing while Jesus holds him. The immediacy is about presence. When we cry out, we are immediately caught in a grip of grace, even if our circumstances are still violently churning around us.
So he prioritizes the person over the environment.
Exactly. Jesus prioritizes the rescue of the relationship over the immediate comfort of the environment. He saves Peter from ultimate destruction first, and only then addresses the wavering focus. It's grace preceding correction.
That makes a lot of sense. It shows he isn't looking for flawless performance. He is looking for a reflex of trust. Let's dig deeper into why Peter sank in the first place, though, because this feels like the core psychological lesson for us.
Let's break down the cognitive behavioral aspect of this. The principle is this: focus creates faith, and focus creates fear.
Almost like a spiritual law of gravity.
Yes. What you fixate on shapes what you believe. When Peter kept his eyes entirely on Jesus, his brain processed safety, the fear lost its grip, and the impossible was sustained. But the moment his focus darted to the wind and the crashing waves, his brain began processing threat.
His anxiety spiked.
And his faith just drained away.
So it wasn't the storm that sank Peter. His environment didn't suddenly get worse. His fear sank him.
Exactly. The weather remained completely constant. His internal focus is what collapsed. And yet, even in his failure, his reflex was perfect.
What do you mean?
When he started to drown, he didn't try to swim back to the boat on his own strength. He didn't try to doggy paddle back to his illusion of control. He cried out directly to the source of his rescue. That raw, unpolished, desperate cry for help is all it takes for grace to intervene.
I love that. I really want to transition this from historical analysis to practical application now. Let's bring this ancient text right into your living room today. After the rescue, Jesus and Peter climb back into the boat. The wind finally dies down, the crisis breaks, and the disciples are left in absolute awe.
They are completely undone.
They worship him, declaring, "Truly, you are the Son of God." It seems like the storm was the exact mechanism needed to push them from merely wondering about his identity to having a concrete, lived experience of it.
Storms are ultimate revealers. They strip away our superficial assumptions and force us to confront bedrock reality. And this month's topic outlines several highly specific transformational steps so that you can apply this operational faith to the crises you are currently navigating.
Okay, so if human psychology naturally defaults to fear when the environment gets chaotic, how do we actually override that reflex? What is the practical mechanism for keeping our focus?
The first step is you have to dictate your inputs. You must look up before you look around.
Look up before you look around.
Yeah. If focus creates faith and focus creates fear, then the first thing you look at in the morning sets the trajectory of your neurology for the day. You have to start your morning grounding yourself in a higher reality, reading the gospel, spending time in his presence, anchoring your mind.
Before touching the phone.
Yes. Do not start your day by reaching for your phone, opening your newsfeed, or checking your inbox to see what new fires have started while you slept. You have to set your focus on the one who walks on water before you let the wind start howling in your mind.
I am completely guilty of the inbox wake-up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is like invited the hurricane right into bed with you before you've even had a cup of coffee.
We all fall into that trap because our brains are wired to scan for threats, but we have to consciously break that habit.
So what's the next step?
The second transformational step is that you have to step out when you feel the call. You have to be willing to leave the boat.
And what does the boat look like for us?
In your life, the boat is whatever you are using to maintain an illusion of control. Stepping out might mean making a terrifying career change that aligns with your convictions. It might mean asking the Holy Spirit for guidance to initiate a conversation to forgive someone who deeply betrayed you, which honestly feels like walking on water.
It really does.
Or it might be sharing your faith in a hostile environment, or simply saying yes to a responsibility that scares you because you feel entirely unqualified.
There is one more concept from this month's topic that I really want to unpack.
Mm.
The instruction to actively speak to fear with faith and to worship even while the storm is still raging. Honestly, from a logical standpoint, that can feel incredibly unnatural.
Oh, totally counterintuitive.
It feels like getting a foreclosure notice on your house, and instead of panicking, you sit at the kitchen table and write a heartfelt thank you note for the home.
Mm.
How do we actively declare, I will not fear, God is with me, without crossing the line into toxic positivity or just living in denial of our very real problems?
That is such a crucial distinction. Faith is not denial. Denial is looking at a 10-foot wave and saying, there is no storm, the boat isn't rocking, everything is perfectly fine.
Right, it's just delusion.
Exactly. Faith, on the other hand, looks directly at the 10-foot wave and says, this storm is incredibly real, it is dangerous, and I am afraid. But the God I serve is greater than the wind and the waves. Speaking to your fear isn't about ignoring reality. It is about declaring a superior reality. When you choose gratitude or worship in the middle of a crisis, you are actively rewiring your focus. You are telling your anxiety which reality has the final word.
That is so good.
Praise is literally a cognitive and spiritual weapon that breaks the paralyzing effect of the threat response and lifts your eyes back to the rescuer.
That reframes the entire concept of facing a crisis. You aren't ignoring the frightening medical report or the plunging bank statement or the relational breakdown. You acknowledge they exist. You just refuse to let them be the loudest voice in the room.
Exactly.
You are letting the voice that says, take courage, it is I, dictate the atmosphere of your life.
Yes, and you must remember the fundamental promise of this text. You will not be allowed to ultimately sink when you place your trust there. There is immense disruptive power in just calling out, Lord, save me.
Keep it simple.
You don't need eloquent, hour-long, theologically perfect prayers when you feel like you are drowning. You just need a real one. The text demonstrates that grace responds to a heart that cries out, no matter how messy, panicked, or doubtful that cry might be. You are caught, you are lifted, and you are given a supernatural peace even before the external wind actually dies down.
Let's pull all of these threads together because the core journey of today's discussion is just so clear. Faith is not the absence of storms. It is the active, courageous choice to walk toward Jesus right in the middle of one.
Beautifully said.
If you keep your focus fixed on Him, you can step out of your safety zones and do the impossible. And when you falter, because human nature guarantees that you will look at the wind eventually, a real raw cry for help will immediately bring a hand to catch you. Grace saves first and asks questions later.
Which leaves us with a final lingering thought to really chew on. We spend so much time talking about Peter. We talk about his audacity, his failure, his rescue. But there were 11 other disciples in that narrative.
Oh, that's right.
11 men who stayed perfectly safe, perfectly dry, clutching the wooden sides of the boat. They didn't sink, but they also didn't walk on the water.
Wow. That changes the whole perspective.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, when the storm finally broke and the sun came up, who actually had a harder time sleeping the next night? The one who stepped out, failed, and was physically caught by grace? Or the 11 who realized they let the greatest supernatural invitation of their lives pass them by because they were too afraid to leave the boat?
That is the real question for you to consider this week. You might be exhausted right now, just gripping the sides of your boat, begging and praying for Jesus to calm the wind in your life. But what if He is waiting for you to step out of the boat?
Are you going to stay in the boat doing everything right but paralyzed by the storm, or are you going to throw your legs over the side and step onto the water? Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. We want to encourage you to take one bold step of faith this week, whatever that looks like in your context. Acknowledge the wind, fix your focus, and step out. We will see you next time.